and about your background. So you're currently the CMO at TigerConnect, which is fully rooted in the healthcare space, which we know has been a space that's been talked about a ton over this past couple of years for a lot of reasons. But I would love to get an understanding of like your background and your career journey and how you got to this role and how previous experiences kind of got you here.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for that, Jess. Well, I joined TigerConnect right after the beginning of the year for two reasons. One is it's a very fast growing SaaS company, and I'm a builder. I love to build things, grow things, and work in kind of an agile, fast paced software environment. But the second thing is right before I joined, my father had COVID and was in the hospital for a month. And as a family member of a patient, I really discovered that there were so many opportunities to transform the way that care teams work with patients and work with families. And so I'm super excited to be part of transforming that. But what got me here, date myself a little bit, about a 30-year B2B marketing veteran. I've worked at some of the world's largest tech companies like Intel, Microsoft, and Motorola, but I've also been CMO of software companies from really small emerging Series A, like 2 million, all the way up to billion-dollar software companies. So I'm applying all that now here at TigerConnect to help this company as it skyrockets towards an IPO.
Awesome. And so, I know we want to talk a bit about the role of digital marketing, and you being the CMO of a company like TigerConnect. I know how critical it is to have a really strong overarching marketing strategy, but getting an understanding of how digital marketing plays into that strategy would be really interesting to hear about, specifically because, you guys are B2B technology, you're rooted in healthcare, you're also a startup. So I feel like there's just so much for you guys to tell the world. So tell me a little bit about how you guys are weaving digital marketing into your strategy and how communicating your message has been going for you guys.
Yeah. Digital marketing, I don't know how you separate digital from marketing anymore. And so it feels like it's almost like, extraneous to put the word digital in front of it, right? Our digital channels are so critical. People might not assume that with B2B, but, really a B2B buyer in this day and age is maybe doing 50, 60, 70% of their research about the solutions they want to consider before they're ever even engaging the software company. So having a really complete digital buyer's journey for all of your organization, your ideal customer profile types, as well as the personas or the audiences within those ideal customer profiles is incredibly critical. So end-to-end buyer's journey, take them on the journey all the way from like the first consideration of, do I even need to consider making a change, all the way to, do I need to consider, this company, or once I do I have the confidence that this company is going to be the right partner for me? I'll be able to implement it and I'll get the right ROI. So we think of that digital journey as something that we need to have that buyer's journey for. We need to be discovered, and we need to take people on that journey with us. And of course, at the middle of that is great content, great SEO. Couldn't get there without having a really smart search engine marketing, but then surrounding it with, maybe some of the more recent technologies around account-based marketing that allows us to really understand what our prospective clients are doing and who's in market for a solution like ours.
Awesome. And one other thought I had here in regards to digital marketing in general is, I think also now you can't totally separate social from digital marketing strategy as well. And, I think in the beginning when social media started to developing, a lot of brands were kind of like, is this a place where we need to be? Is this a place? Now it's 2021, and we know that that social media is a place where we all need to be in some way, shape, or form. Whether you're a B2B company, a consumer-facing company, it's just equally as important. So I'd love to get an understanding of how social media plays a role for you guys and what that role is. What is social media for TigerConnect and how do you guys approach it?
I think for B2B companies, social media is actually as important. And maybe we're not chasing those Instagram influencers as much as the consumer companies are, but we are trying to share our authentic voice in social media. And so for us, it's even more important that we bring our employees into that. In B2B, you want to be perceived as an expert. Sorry, there's a guy doing work right outside my window. Let me chase him away.
Oh man. Real home environment, everyone.
Okay, I chased him away. How hilarious is that? I mean, that's like, feels like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like a COVID thing, right? You're all working from home and real life intrudes.
I usually get got by the leaf blower guy. The leaf blower guy always gets me.
So I was saying that social media for us is about sharing our authentic voice and really our brand story. So one of our biggest things we focus on is empowering our employees to tell our story for us. People want to hear from people. They believe people more than they sometimes even believe, trusted brands. And so while we think we are a trusted brand, we really focus a lot of our social media on giving great content to our expert employees who are expert in healthcare, expert in software, to allow them to expand our voice and our reach out through our social channels. And of course, we still focus on our own social channels, and I joke about Instagram, but we're there, especially for, our employer brand and for recruiting, that's important. And of course, we have a podcast because it's a great way to tell customer stories for us. So we invite our customers on to tell about their experiences, what they're moving through and how we're helping them. And see, now you finally heard the puppies too.
And there's the pup.
There's the puppies. So yeah, digital, social, super, super critical to our overall brand mix.
So, and speaking about, the podcast angle, I love that you guys are doing some podcasting. And so what have you're telling different customer stories. What have you guys been doing when you're telling those stories that is helping to really drive engagement? What have you guys been finding successful in the podcast space? Because, I feel like a lot of companies have dabbled a little bit here. They might be doing some end tags with different podcasts, but I know that there are some companies who are, contemplating starting their own and doing a little thought leadership in that space. So love to hear a little bit about that too.
Well, there's podcasts for everything, right? And so when you hear, a healthcare software company has a podcast, you might think, well, why, right? For especially in B2B. But what I would say is podcasts are a great medium for really comfortable conversations with your clients. Social proof, which is the evidence that the customer can provide that your solution actually works, is critically important in the enterprise space. And yet, customers in in B2B software and healthcare might be a little hesitant to, have a film crew come out to their hospital and film a testimonial video, but they're not as hesitant to hop right on that podcast and have a conversation. So we're giving our customers a voice. We're letting them tell really compelling narratives. And then we're using that information, to share with other prospects, but also, on our website, et cetera. Actually, we're going through a website redesign. And one of the things we're doing is bringing podcasts right up to the front because they are so compelling. And in the end, we're marketing to humans. Humans want to hear storytelling from other humans. And it's a really valuable medium for us.
Okay. So speaking of humans, hearing from other humans, I would love to hear, obviously the whole influencer thing is like a thing now. It's how I have my job. Hello. And I love hearing people's opinions, especially C-suite opinions on leveraging influencers, working with influencers, the role of influencers, especially when it comes to your industry. You guys are unique in that you are in the healthcare space, you guys are a B2B technology. You are speaking to a very specific type of customer.
Right.
So for you guys, I would love to get an understanding of, the role of an influencer. And are those influencers solely your customers, or are there influencers that you guys see that would make sense for your type of business, to represent you guys in a natural way?
Yeah, well, again, it's a little different than a consumer brand where somebody can make themselves an influencer through, beautiful photography or pulling products into experiences. For us, you have to be an expert. You kind of have to be an expert, right? So our influencers maybe look a little different. They're industry analysts, they're physicians who are, really caring about the future of healthcare, and have maybe created a great medium for themselves on Clubhouse, or they're consultants or experts in the industry who have created a voice for themselves. So we do think about influencers. We just think about it in a little bit of a different way, but they're critical. Again, back to you have to like really understand your buyer's journey and what takes your buyer from consideration to confidence. How do you create confidence in them and again, social proof of customers, but also industry influencers, storytelling, talking about and creating an obvious need for your solution is a really critical part of even B2B marketing.
Oh yeah, I fully agree. It's interesting. I was audience. I was telling Wendy that my family is very deeply rooted in the healthcare industry, and I think that's completely correct. My sister works for a healthcare network. She works for like a hospital network, and she was talking to me about how her doctors, they're speaking to a lot of their doctors about going out there and creating their own voice and putting out really quality content that will be helpful, not only to the consumers that come to the hospital, but also from a B2B perspective, entrusting the hospital as a place. So I think that's completely on point, and I think it's interesting how the industry has evolved, leveraging different types of influencers that aren't the standard person traveling to Aruba taking beautiful pictures. So
Even though
really cool
I'll
to
take the trip to Aruba if I can
I
consider an influencer. Let's go.
me too. Me too. So, I think it comes out saying that 2020 put a really different eye on the healthcare industry in general. And quite frankly, I think a much more concerned eye on that industry than people have ever really put before. So I would love to hear your take on how you feel the pandemic affected the healthcare industry, especially from a B2B perspective. And what do you feel like are going to be the lasting effects on the healthcare on healthcare marketing because of what happened last year and is continuing to go on?
I think there's no doubt that, and we can all observe it, that healthcare may be a little behind other industries when it comes to digital transformation. And you have a moment in time like what happened with COVID. It's a catalyst for change. There's just no doubt. And actually, you can look at things like search volume pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, related to healthcare, software, technology, terminology, digital transformation in healthcare, and it spiked, 30, 40, 50%. And that's because, during that time, hospitals had to confront we need to do something different to get the best quality of care for our patients. And luckily, we're right in the center of that. So I think what we're going to see is, and then the other thing as a patient, all of us experienced telehealth during this period and probably liked it a lot, right? And so now what happens when you have, digital transformation accelerating in hospitals and doctors' offices, right? And patient expectations changing. It's just a tipping point moment for technology adoption. And so for me as a marketer, we see that we're taking advantage of that. We're marketing into that opportunity. And then, for my company, you called us a startup, but I really consider us a scale up. We're going towards 100 million. We're at that point where we are really growing up as a company beyond being a startup. And our marketing and our digital marketing is doing the same because we have such a great market opportunity.
That's great. So what do you guys see, as you guys are starting to grow and evolve? Um, you know, I'd love you to speak to some of the challenges that you guys might be seeing and how you guys are overcoming that, especially when it comes to a marketing, from a marketing perspective. What are the challenges that you guys are up against?
Well, I've spent 30 years marketing to CIOs, chief information officers, people who make technology decisions, executives inside Fortune 100 or 1,000 companies. And so as a marketer, you get a little confidence of, oh, I can market to anybody because I can understand the technology, or I can understand the customer value proposition, and I can build an engine around it. But then you come into healthcare and you realize, well, you're talking to, your story, the people that are consuming your story are doctors, they're chief nursing information officers, people that are helping, relieve the stress on nurses by bringing them technologies that make their jobs easier. You really have to understand that, that audience. So for me, probably the biggest challenge is how to marry deep technical expertise that we get from our clinical teams. We have doctors on staff with great marketing expertise. How do you bring those two together to create amazing content that fuels demand, that engages customers and meets them where they're at, and speaks their language? It's probably the challenge for all marketers. It just feels extra hard in healthcare. And so that's where I'm really focused my time right now, is how do we marry those two things into an amazing marketing engine?
Awesome. That's fantastic. I think I love hearing about the different, challenges that go on, especially when it comes to, marketing with the healthcare industry. 'Cause like I said, it's something that's very close to my family, but I also hear the other side of it too. My mom works in a role where she is consistently having to, see sensitive information like, HIPAA privileged information. So I think what you guys are doing is really important, because it's solving a lot of the communication issues that just can go along, in healthcare.
Well, as a marketer, I will say collaboration software, Slack has been a major part of my workflow, right? Why? Because I can expose my Google data in it. I can see my Marketo data. I can, understand how my website is performing because there's natural integration. The same thing is true in healthcare. People want to communicate and collaborate with people, and they want to do it simply, easy, great user experience. But the other thing about that is people need data to make decisions. And so bringing data into a collaboration platform, bringing conversations, making instantaneous decisions that need to be made, maybe life, changing, life-saving decisions, all that in one spot, but also doing that in a very secure way. That's a really unique challenge. So we have to be able to communicate the aspects of that, the security, the reliability, the uptime, the compliance, all those things. As a marketer, it's important to understand why that's so mission critical to the clients that we serve.
Absolutely. So, I would love to, 2021's been kind of like a weird evolving year, I would say, for everyone. And while, I think, where we started off and where we're going has continued to be a really cool evolution to see. I think people have been overall way more hopeful in 2021 and way more excited about what things are to come. So I would love to get an understanding just in general of, what excites you about 2021? What do you think is to come, and what do you see on the horizon, especially within your industry,
Yeah.
within this year that you think is going to be just really exciting?
You know, Isn't it funny that the simple things are exciting us again? Like going to the office and doing a whiteboarding session with live people in a room and bringing your creativity to bear, against an opportunity or challenge. We're actually bringing our whole company together the week after next for a session to reconnect, to bond, and grow our culture again, to figure out how we're going to be innovative and agile together. And I'm honestly like incredibly excited. And then I think about getting in front of customers and creating that like human to human conversation live again. So exciting. As much as I think I've gotten incredibly just so much out of Zoom interactions, webinars. I have a weekly CMO coffee chat that I go to every Friday morning. It's like I would not miss it for anything, and I've become really bonded with the people in that. I'm really looking forward to being live again. It's a simple thing, the simple act of brainstorming, the simple act of a cup of coffee with a client or a business colleague. It's silly, but it's just really real.
Yeah, no, I can definitely agree with that. I think you're right. It's down to going back to the simpler things being just so much more enjoyable. I mean, even down to everyday life. I know, my my friends were all excited for us to be able to go to the movies. Like that was something that we were like, "Oh gosh, so expensive, so annoying back in the day, like before pre-COVID times."
Oh, I
And
said
now
the
we're
same
like, "Oh
thing
my
to my
God."
husband. I wanted to go to a movie, and he's like, well, "What movies are out?" I'm like, "I don't know. I just want to go sit in a movie theater with us."
Right? Like it's
Yeah,
that human interaction. And that brings up a good question in regards to how you guys have been evolving as an organization throughout the time of the pandemic and through now. So talk to me a little bit about, you guys are going to be doing some things together, but as an organization, are you guys going to be remote? Are you guys going to be hybrid? What's your
yeah,
approach? And what do you think the benefits are to the approach that you guys are going to be having?
yeah. I don't know if you've been reading up about the concept of the Great Resignation, right? But there is this concept in the industry right now that people are leaving jobs because their values. I think COVID brought their values into focus, and their values may be less time commuting, more time, more flexible schedules, et cetera. I feel super lucky to, first of all, we have an incredible HR leader at our company who really watched this happening and forced the discussion into, hey, we can no longer have an required in office, required one location model. We need to, one, get the best talent wherever they are. And then two, engage and retain our employees by offering them more flexible workforce solutions. So we are not going back to a requirement to be in the office. We are going to a hybrid work model. The executive team that I work with, we've started making plans of let's get together every fourth week in the office for a few days. Let's make sure that we try to organize our time to be together, but also like focus on real life. I don't live anywhere near our office, and I'm okay with that. And I think my boss is too. So, and I certainly feel the same way about my team. The ability to find the best talent wherever they are is a real positive aspect of that.
So, speaking of talent and cultivating the right talent, and I think that is so valid. I absolutely love that because it now feels weird to me when companies are looking for people who are in roles that can be virtually anywhere, but they're like, oh, it has to be in this city, in this place. It feels slightly limiting almost because it's like
Right.
there's all this potential that's out
Yeah.
there that you're missing out on. But I think something that's come up a lot, even over the past few years, is not only evolving the types of people that we're bringing in, but I think a lot of conversation has happened around diversity, inclusion, and diversifying the workforce, but
Right.
also diversifying and having different representation within the way that we market. So I'd love to hear how you guys, as a company, are approaching that right now.
Yeah, well, I was super lucky, over the last year to work at Expedia, and I used to run the B2B side of Expedia, the corporate travel side, but benefited from having an amazing diversity and inclusion team that I learned so much from, and was able to think a lot about diverse marketing, everything from something as simple as, do you put transcriptions on live events? Do you, what's your registration information ask for a live event in terms of pronouns or, gender preferences? And then also just what is the language and the photography? Like you can look at every aspect of your marketing and say, what's a thoughtful, right way to approach this? And so I think as a CMO, that's one of the things important to me, is that it's not just about, throwing a pride flag up on your brand in June. It's actually having a holistic approach all year long to be thinking about more diverse hiring, more diverse, marketing and every aspect, including accessibility of your website, including accessibility of your emails, including, gender pronouns and how you ask for registration information or title information. Like you got to think about the opportunity and end to end through your marketing and communications.
I love that. And, I think that is completely on point. And I think brands are starting to get an understanding of that, because, the brands that are the ones who are just slapping it on during Pride Month and then not really representing before or after, or even just their mission not lining up with that community in general. I think they're getting caught a little bit now. And so I think that's a great
And
way to
called
think.
out. Yeah, and called
They're
out.
getting called out,
I will say that I've seen some very smart executives in my network call out companies on LinkedIn over the last 6 weeks. And I think, or even describe what the high bar is and challenge others to meet it, which is good. And that's a great place and a great time to have this conversation.
Absolutely. One thing that I would love your opinion on, and I like to kind of ask people in your role about, is how you guys are internally, helping those people who are within your company to learn, grow, get to the next step, how you're facilitating internal growth and just growth in your employees in general. Because I know I can tell you, I have worked in the advertising industry for like 15 years, aging myself, whoops. And
You're a baby. Come on.
I honestly, I can tell you that in the beginning of my career, what wound up being a really crucial moment for me was when I worked at an agency that had a mentorship program. And I hadn't worked at an agency that had one before. I was super excited to be part of it. And having my mentor, I think, changed my entire way of being and my entire way of thinking within the advertising industry, especially when it came to career development. So I'd love to hear what you guys do over at TigerConnect to really foster that type of growth, because I know that's something really important to people.
Well, so I mentioned earlier, I have an amazing head of people, and so I won't steal her thunder because she's about to announce some really even more interesting things at our company get together in 2 weeks. But what I will say is, the one good thing about being on a diverse leadership team, and I do work on a diverse leadership team, is that group cares and thinks about employee growth. We just went through an entire exercise of looking at our employee base and figuring out who we need to invest in, where we need to bring mentorship, to bring people up through the ranks, and made a plan for it. And then the other thing I would say is, for me personally, and I'm a big believer in mentoring employees and giving them tools and resources. So internally, we have things from like a channel where we share best practices and do coaching. I mentor several folks inside and outside of the company, there's like an obligation at some certain level where you have to say, like, your job is to bring people up behind you. Maybe it's because I have adult children now who are entering the workforce or who have entered the workforce, and I see how critical it is for them to grow their career. I'm particularly passionate about this. So I can't spill the beans yet about our company's program. All I can say is I'm so glad that I work with such a great chief people officer that this is like top of mind for her.
Oh man, well, I can't wait to hear about it. I
Yeah.
always love to hear how companies are doing these different things because I just know how much of an impact it made for me. And so seeing that more and more companies are starting to really understand that investing in the human beings that are running the ship is really a positive change. And I think it's something that people should really look forward to. One other question I had for you, that pertains to the healthcare industry in general, you know, the past, let's call it like 10 years has been like this crazy convergence and evolution of the healthcare industry from a government policy standpoint. And I feel like it is continuing to evolve. I would love to hear what you guys, as your company, are hopeful is going to happen, or hopeful might be some changes that come in the form of the healthcare system in general from a government perspective, that you think that will be really helpful to the consumer and also helpful to the providers that you guys are working with.
Wow, Jess, it's an like intriguing and deep question, and I'm not sure I have the best answer.
I don't think there's any right answer, by the way. I think everybody's
Yeah.
still trying to figure it out.
Well, if you look at electronic medical records, for example, and the kind of transformation that's happened around that was sparked off of a government mandate and a government program to really move healthcare providers onto those records. And if you think about like waves of innovation that happen because of that, right? You get a core system like that, and then in all the innovation that happens at the fringes and the ecosystem of that. I think that's where we are right now with communication and collaboration in healthcare. Like we're just at that point, and I don't even think it needs to be a government mandate. I don't see anything on the horizon that says it will. I think the industry is moving itself fast enough. Obviously, government programs that are designed around healthcare for all have implications, and they just create more and more opportunity for innovative players like my own company to get in and create a space and innovate. So I don't know, there's a lot of VC money chasing healthcare right now, which is great. And there's a lot of great companies like ours that are, I think, bringing a transformational impact. And I think the two of those things together is gonna play out. So like to earlier, it's a tipping point. Like I think the next 10 years is going to be incredibly transformational.
Yeah, and I think you're totally right. I mean, like I said, I've had a family that has been very deeply rooted in the healthcare industry, and my mom specifically is in sales. And so, for her, the ability to be able to get information in a way that is easy, comprehensive, and having that at her fingertips instead of having, I remember back in the day when she used to have insane levels of folders and paperwork in her trunk. Those days are now numbered, which is nice for her because she's easily able to access a lot of the data that she needs to go in and speak to a lot of these doctors, right within an iPad. So I think that's definitely, I think you're right there. I'm hopeful that the technology side of the healthcare industry will continue to evolve, because I think you're right. I think it's slowly jumped on, but I think because of the pandemic, we are having a very serious insurgence of funding going towards technology when it comes to the healthcare industry in general. So I think it's fantastic. I think I have time for one last question, and that would just be specific to TigerConnect in general. As you guys are growing, I would love to hear where you think, where you're hopeful TigerConnect will be in the next 5 years as a company, and where you and the rest of your C-suite are hopeful to be in the next few years.
I in my head parallel a little bit the journey that Slack just took when they started being a real transformational force in enterprise, business communications, I kind of look at TigerConnect and I think we have the opportunity to be as transformational for healthcare as Slack has been for the way software teams work together, or marketing teams, or customer service teams work together. And so for me, I just see the opportunity to continue partnering with great ecosystem partners, building out more and more services on top of our platform, all with the goal of obviously like reducing stress on our healthcare workers, improving the quality of patient care, reducing errors, helping save lives. I know it sounds silly for a software company to say, oh, we're going to help save lives, but fundamentally, the more that we can empower healthcare workers, to provide great quality of care, the better. And so, for us, it's about bringing more and more and more solutions into our platform that really empower those healthcare workers.
You know what, and I don't think it's silly at all, because I think what you guys are providing for them is time. And when you're giving them the ability to have, find things very quickly, communicate with each other very seamlessly, you're giving them that time back to be able to put into the people, which I think is really crucial.
You nailed it. And it's also,
I don't think that's
speed of decision making, et cetera. So you've nailed all of it, Jess.
Yeah. I mean, it comes from just seeing the other side of it, that I completely understand why you guys are definitely a company that's going to make a very great impact, and companies like yours for people like my mom and the doctors that she works with. They're always crunched for time, and there's so much. She always says, people look at doctors and healthcare workers as the end all be all, and that they're supposed to know everything. But the reality is they can only know what they know, and they can only know what they have the time to be able to absorb, and what information people will be able to bring to them. And so, the ability for them to be able to have some time to be able to continue to learn and know more, I think is definitely something that's crucial. So I think it's great what you guys are doing.
I think we as a society have really come to believe over the last year that these healthcare workers are heroes. And we have to all be aware of the mental, health issues, the physical, demands on these folks, and whatever we can do to help that. So I agree with everything you said.
Yeah. And, I think the development and all the different mental health apps and products that have been popping up are only highlighting what we kind of knew before, but weren't doing as much about. So I think that is the absolute truth about that. You know what? I think we're just about at time. Let me ping Ryan. Oh, Ryan, you there?
Ping me. I'm hanging out with you. Still here.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're just at our time right now. Which means, we should probably see the dogs at this point.
Oh, mine is
the guy with the saw. Where'd he go? Where's the guy with the saw? That was crazy.
I know, right? Where's he at? Now, my poor, I would show you mine, but she's passed out in her little beanbag chair
somewhere. So sorry, Ryan. Maybe next time I'll plan better.
Yeah, just invite us back to the brand innovators puppy discussion.
That's actually the next one we're going to be putting together. So it's bring your puppies to the live cast day, and it's going to be a full 3 hours of just puppies on camera with us the entire time.